The Middle East stands on the edge of a new and dangerous phase in the Iran-Israel rivalry. What was once a simmering conflict often hidden from public view has now burst into the open, drawing the attention of the entire world. The tension between these two nations is not new, but the stakes and the risks have never felt so immediate or so high. What was once a shadow war of covert operations has erupted into open threats and military posturing. Both sides are now flexing their military might, with troops mobilizing, air defenses on high alert, and intelligence agencies working around the clock. The world is witnessing a dramatic escalation as each nation signals its readiness for confrontation. As of June 17, 2025, the world watches anxiously, fearing a direct military clash that could destabilize the entire region. The uncertainty has sent shockwaves through global markets, and ordinary people from Tehran to Tel Aviv and far beyond are glued to their screens, hoping for signs of de-escalation. The anxiety is palpable, not just in the Middle East, but across the globe. This crisis is the result of decades of animosity, rooted in the 1979 Iranian Revolution and fueled by years of proxy battles and cyber attacks. The revolution transformed Iran's relationship with the world, setting it on a collision course with Israel. Over the years, both nations have engaged in a complex web of espionage, sabotage, and indirect warfare, each move deepening the mistrust and hostility. Recent events have shattered the old status quo, with leaders on both sides issuing explicit threats and leaving little room for de-escalation. Rhetoric has grown sharper, and the language of diplomacy is being replaced by ultimatums and warnings. The streets of both nations are filled with protesters, some calling for peace, others demanding strength and retaliation. The conflict, once fought through proxies, now threatens to become a direct confrontation between two powerful states. The military buildup is unmistakable, and the possibility of a miscalculation or accidental clash grows with every passing hour. Both sides are preparing for the worst, even as the world hopes for the best. For Israel, the existential fear is a nuclear-armed Iran. For Iran, it's about asserting regional power and resisting foreign pressure. The nuclear question looms large, casting a shadow over every diplomatic effort. Both nations see themselves as fighting for survival, and that sense of existential threat makes compromise even more elusive. Every move is scrutinized, as the world wonders if diplomacy can avert a catastrophic war. International mediators are working tirelessly, but the path to peace is narrow and fraught with obstacles. The coming days will test the resolve of leaders, diplomats, and ordinary citizens alike. The stakes have never been higher. The world holds its breath, hoping that this new chapter in an old rivalry does not become a tragedy for generations to come. The immediate spark is Iran's nuclear program, with diplomacy now at a dead end. Iran's rejection of a US-led proposal and the IAEA's formal rebuke have closed off peaceful solutions. Iran's defiant response, announcing a new enrichment plant and claiming to possess Israeli nuclear secrets, has only deepened the crisis. Each side's actions have hardened positions, making compromise nearly impossible. The nuclear issue, once a matter for negotiation, is now the main justification for potential military action. The countdown to conflict has begun. With diplomacy in tatters, the world watches as the last hopes for a peaceful resolution slip away. The once bustling halls of international negotiation now stand silent, echoing with the weight of failed agreements and shattered trust. Tensions that simmered beneath the surface for years have now erupted into open hostility, and the sense of foreboding is palpable across the globe. Both Iran and Israel have put their militaries on the highest alert, bracing for the possibility of imminent conflict. Soldiers stand watch at tense checkpoints in Tehran and Tel Aviv, their eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of escalation. The air is thick with anxiety, as families prepare for the worst and leaders weigh their next moves. Israel, feeling increasingly isolated, prepares for a possible preemptive strike. Fighter jets are readied on runways under the cover of darkness, and pilots review their mission plans with grim determination. The nation's military leadership debates the risks and rewards of striking first, knowing that any action could ignite a regional firestorm. Meanwhile, Iran showcases its military might, parading ballistic missiles through the streets and issuing stern warnings of devastating retaliation. The message is clear: any attack will be met with overwhelming force, and the consequences could be catastrophic for the entire region. The United States, while pledging only defensive support, has moved military assets into position and issued statements urging restraint. American officials walk a diplomatic tightrope, seeking to deter aggression without becoming directly involved in another Middle Eastern war. Inside Israel's war rooms, the Prime Minister and top military officials pore over maps and intelligence reports, weighing the grave risks of acting alone. The absence of a firm American commitment leaves Israel facing a daunting decision: strike now and risk a wider war, or hold back and risk Iran's nuclear ambitions advancing unchecked. Without access to American bombers and advanced munitions, Israel's ability to destroy Iran's most fortified nuclear sites is in serious doubt. Deep underground bunkers and heavily defended facilities present formidable obstacles, raising questions about the effectiveness of any potential strike. A limited strike could trigger massive retaliation, unleashing a wave of missile attacks and drawing neighboring countries into the conflict. The specter of urban warfare and civilian casualties looms large, threatening to plunge the region into chaos. Even with precise intelligence and advanced weaponry, there is no guarantee that a strike would eliminate the nuclear threat. Past operations have shown that facilities can be rebuilt, and the cycle of violence may only deepen the crisis. The decision to attack hangs in the balance, with military commanders and political leaders acutely aware of the stakes. One wrong move could set off a chain reaction, with consequences far beyond the borders of Iran and Israel. Civilians in both Tel Aviv and Tehran live in fear, bracing for air raid sirens and the possibility of war erupting overnight. Around the world, headlines warn of rising tensions, and the international community holds its breath, hoping for a last-minute breakthrough. The region is one miscalculation away from all-out war. A single spark could ignite a conflict with devastating consequences for millions. Iran's power extends through a vast network of proxies, most notably Hezbollah in Lebanon. In any conflict, Hezbollah could unleash thousands of rockets on Israel, opening a second front. Iran-backed militias in Syria and Iraq threaten U.S. and Israeli interests, creating a multi-front dilemma. Israel claims its campaign of airstrikes has weakened these groups, but their threat remains real. Tehran's message, an attack on Iran, means war with a coalition across the region. This strategy ensures any conflict would be chaotic, unpredictable, and hard to contain. The proxy network is Iran's most potent deterrent. Israel's overriding goal is to prevent a nuclear Iran, a mission seen as existential. The country is on high alert, preparing both its military and civilians for possible war. Diplomatic efforts continue, but skepticism runs high in Jerusalem. Israel's defense strategy relies on advanced missile shields and a proactive military posture. Public shelters are readied, and anxiety mixes with determination among the population. The government projects unity and resolve, bracing for the hardships of conflict. Israelis face a stark choice: risk war now or live under the shadow of an Iranian bomb. Around the world, the crisis has sent shockwaves through the halls of power. Global leaders are watching events unfold with a mix of alarm, caution, and strategic calculation. Each nation sees the crisis through its own lens, shaped by alliances, rivalries, and economic interests. The stakes are high, and the responses are as varied as the countries themselves. The United States, a long-standing ally of Israel, has quickly reaffirmed its support. Yet Washington is treading carefully, wary of being drawn into another conflict in the region. American officials have tightened sanctions on Iran and are pushing for urgent diplomatic talks, hoping to prevent escalation. Behind closed doors, the administration debates how far to go, balancing domestic pressures with the risks of direct military involvement. Security has been ramped up at American embassies across the Middle East, and military families are on edge, bracing for the possibility of wider conflict. The Pentagon has quietly moved assets into the region, signaling both readiness and concern. For many Americans, the specter of another drawn-out war looms large. Meanwhile, Russia and China have stepped up their diplomatic engagement with Iran. Both countries have called for restraint, but their support for Tehran is clear. Moscow and Beijing have condemned Western sanctions and military threats, positioning themselves as counterweights to U.S. influence. Their involvement adds another layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. In Europe, leaders are deeply concerned. The European Union, already struggling with internal divisions, fears that a full-scale war would shatter hopes for a renewed nuclear deal and send energy prices soaring. European stock markets have reacted nervously, and business leaders warn of a potential economic shock that could ripple across the globe. The United Kingdom has issued warnings about threats to international shipping lanes, especially near the vital Strait of Hormuz. British naval patrols have increased, and government officials are urging calm while preparing for possible disruptions to global trade and energy supplies. The economic risks are impossible to ignore. Despite ongoing mediation efforts by the United Nations and regional powers, the window for diplomacy appears to be closing. Frustration is mounting as talks stall, and the threat of open conflict grows. Many fear that the influence of traditional mediators is fading in the face of hardening positions. The world now finds itself on a geopolitical chessboard, where every move carries enormous consequences. As leaders weigh their options, the crisis in the Middle East has become a test of global resolve, unity, and the fragile balance of power. The stakes could not be higher. Ordinary people across the Middle East face the terrifying prospect of war. In Israel, families prepare for missile barrages from multiple fronts, living with constant anxiety. In Iran, economic hardship is compounded by fears of airstrikes and further isolation. Neighboring countries like Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq risk being drawn into the conflict, with devastating humanitarian consequences. The Persian Gulf's vital shipping lanes are threatened, raising the specter of a global energy crisis. The human cost extends far beyond the battlefield, measured in fear, displacement, and economic pain. The shadow of war touches millions. The world is searching for a way back from the brink. Upcoming nuclear talks in Oman may be the last chance for diplomacy. A limited Israeli strike could set back Iran's program, but risks uncontrollable escalation. Alternatively, both sides might settle into a tense standoff, with covert attacks and constant alert. None of these options resolve the core conflict. Only diplomacy can offer lasting peace. The next moves in Jerusalem, Tehran, and Washington will decide the region's fate. The best hope is compromise, the worst, a devastating war. The future hangs in the balance. The Iran-Israel crisis is not just a regional issue, it's a global one. A war could destabilize the world economy, disrupt energy supplies, and set a dangerous precedent for nuclear proliferation. The outcome will test the international community's ability to resolve conflicts peacefully. Economic shockwaves would be felt everywhere, threatening growth and stability. At its heart, this is a human story, about the universal desire for security and peace. Paying attention is an act of global citizenship. Supporting diplomacy is in everyone's interest. In our interconnected world, the fires of distant conflict can quickly become everyone's concern.